I woke up feeling weak, as if I were hungover. The chirping of birds replaced the bells that served as my alarm when I was in cities. The dream I had made me forget where I was for the first few minutes. It was inexplicable how a person's happiness could turn into sadness and disappointment when transitioning from an imaginary paradise to reality. In that version of the perfect world, I had a wife who cared for me as much as I loved her. In the light of that long-set sun, I still shone, blessed and with an untarnished honor. Now, I was back here. The years that followed the events that shattered my soul into pieces were not too merciful to me. I had surpassed the limits that good people impose on themselves. If I were once a peacemaker, now I was darker at heart than the long winter nights, where only the howls of wolves and monsters echoed in the distance. If there was any hope of reliving those moments, then I had to continue through the abyss that had formed in my mind and heart, sacrificing my innocence until I could taste the sweet fulfillment of a man surrounded by beauty. I finally got up from the couch I slept on. It took me a few moments to recover, as I always felt dizzy when I got up too quickly. In those moments when I waited to regain my sight, I could hear movement in the kitchen. It had to be Cassie, undoubtedly. Any conversation with her was still like steps on a frozen lake. I had to keep up the appearances so I could get her to follow me if I wanted a chance to complete my mission. Finally, I found the strength to go to the room where my new recruit was. I saw how, for a moment, she froze when I opened the door. She was more than likely still scared of everything that was happening. The girl turned to me.
"Good morning,"
she said politely but still restrained. I decided to give her more time without forcing her hand by imposing a warmer attitude. After all, I was just another stranger in her eyes. Before I could tell her all the details that would contradict everything she believed, I had to gain her trust. So I decided to have a friendly conversation to figure out how best to approach the more delicate subjects.
"And I thought I was the one sleeping a lot."
It was a good sign that she was starting the conversation with a joke. It gave me the freedom to be more detached and get to know each other better. "It seems you've regained some of your powers and courage, sweetheart." She looked at me out of the corner of her eye, probably surprised by the term I used.
"I must say, as I recover more, you seem to get more exhausted."
She got closer, placing a cup of tea in front of me and taking a seat at the other end of the table. "Poison?" I jokingly asked.
"Only if chamomile is poisonous in this area. I'm still waiting for you to tell me exactly where we are."
It was expected that she wanted more information. For her, the most important thing was to unravel the whole story, but that would have unexpected consequences. If she learned too much at once, my entire plan could fail. I had to sweeten her up until I was sure she wouldn't leave because of the inexplicable things happening. "For now, we have other priorities, Cassie. As you know, I need your help to take down these cultists. Once we remove the threat they pose, I can go about my way and you'll be free to do as you please. With a bit of luck, with their extermination, the curse they cast upon us will end." She sipped her tea, probably looking for the right words.
"I've been thinking about it since I woke up, you know. I want to ask you something."
I allowed myself to also take a sip, surprised at how sweet she made it. It was exactly to my liking. I put the cup on the table and signaled her to continue.
"From everything you know and everything you've experienced, have you ever had the feeling that you're not alone?"
I involuntarily frowned, not understanding what she meant. "What do you mean?" She wrung her hands, trying to carefully choose her words.
"I know it will sound strange, but my dreams seem to be the same since I got here. Every time I fall asleep, I see the silhouette of a woman with a scythe."
I dropped my cup when I heard her words.
Alex, are you okay?
I gestured for her not to get up. I stood still for a few seconds, then asked her to continue. My heart started beating as if I were a scared rabbit.
Besides her, I've also dreamed of a strange shadow, like a kind of demon that follows me everywhere. I'm asking you if you ever felt a foreign presence because I feel like that entity is watching me even when I'm not asleep.
I was downright shocked to hear these things, but at the same time, I was grateful. Everything was happening faster than I expected. What makes you say that this creature is following you not only in dreams? She fell into thought again, whispering at last.
This morning I felt something strange. I could swear it wasn't me. Moreover...
She paused for a moment, making me insist. What is it? She raised her gaze to me, continuing.
The moment I woke up, I saw a kind of strange smoke covering my fingers.
Its appearance was gaining more and more strength. It was time to take things further before the situation got out of control. As I said, we have the power of immortality thanks to an entity that those people tied to our souls. If you let it get out of control, it will wreak havoc around you. There are ways to keep it under control, but you'll need training to achieve this. She stood up, heading towards the window.
So what do I have to do?
I got up too, walking slowly towards her and looking at the trees watching over us from behind the cloudy glass. We need to start your training today. Although you may feel unprepared, something tells me you'll learn the necessary techniques faster than you expect. You'll be able to use a bow, swords, daggers, and even disarm the people we'll face. She looked at me with a special fascination. I didn't get a chance to ask a related question because she beat me to it.
I wonder, are you doing all of this because you need an ally? Or is it loneliness that makes you seek someone to resonate with?
I remained motionless, looking at her attentively. I believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. If everything goes as planned, I will have both an ally and someone with whom I can spend my time once this whole story is over. I haven't lied to her. I've just wrapped the truth in a fabric sewn with contradictory ideas. She left the kitchen shortly to change into more suitable training clothes. I remained unmoved behind her, looking at my hands and wondering if my actions were those of an innocent person seeking happiness again, or of a person estranged from faith who would do anything out of sheer desperation. I still had a choice, even though I preferred to believe that the decision wasn't mine, but rather dictated by fate. Hunters were condemned to lead a long life full of contradictory ideas. No matter how much I refused to accept it, unfortunately, that was our destiny, ours alone.
Several weeks passed as if it were only a moment. With each day spent training, I felt my body adapting to the physical effort, while my mind began to accept the idea that this was my destiny. Perhaps, at first, I didn't want to consider the fact that those people deserved to meet their end at my hands. However, with each technique I began to master, the need for revenge became increasingly profound. I was still confused, even though the man who trained me did everything possible to give me a sense of belonging. I didn't understand why, but with each moment spent with him, I felt more at home, truly at home. That was a problem for me, considering I had just met Alexander. Every time I tried to ask him a question about his past, he took a step back, redirecting the conversation. It was clear that, between the two of us, he was the more cautious one. I should have acted the same way, but I concluded that I hadn't experienced enough trauma to shape me in the same way he had. The longing for my own parents still lingered within me, but it was much weaker than in the first days when I arrived here. Now, I was beginning to believe that my destiny was far greater, and I had the responsibility to participate in the events that awaited us. The fate of many other innocent people, perhaps even more innocent than me, depended on what we were about to do. For this reason, I decided to follow him and do the best I could to be the ally he needed to end this conflict. Thus came the day when Alexander told me to set aside my wooden weapons, probably reaching the end of my training period. He had mentioned a few days earlier that we would soon leave for the place where the cultists were last seen. Following his instructions, I left my tools in their place and headed for the attic. There, among a pile of boxes, he awaited me, gazing at the fog that surrounded the cabin since the early morning. He turned to me once he heard my footsteps, gesturing for me to approach. "What are we doing here?" I asked, tired from the last training session. He took a deep breath, then responded,
Today is an important day, both for me and for you.
He took a few steps toward a crate from which he pulled out something wrapped in impeccable silk. He unfolded it, revealing a kind of belt with a sheath attached on both sides.
Go ahead, try it on.
He said, handing it to me. I put the belt around my waist, adjusting it so it wouldn't fall due to my movements. Once I had that sorted out, Alexander pulled out something else from the veil of that material.
These objects are truly special to me, and I can hardly part with them.
It was about 2 daggers that looked like they had been taken from a mythical universe. I hadn't found anything similar to them, even in medieval movies or fantasy novels.
Their color is natural, but I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what metal they are made of.
I looked at him as he held them out to me, trying to understand. Alex, why do you have so much trust in me? I understand that your intuition tells you I'm not a threat, but any weak-minded person could use a knife to stab you in the back. He smiled at my words, then gave me the answer.
Any weak-minded person? Exactly. And you are not such a person. Few could, in a month, handle weapons as well as you, especially since you haven't had any experience in close combat. Moreover, you're smart enough to know that if I were to fall, you would follow shortly after.
He was right, which is why I decided to stay silent and accept my new weapons. The moment I laid my hands on them, I felt something change. The same smoke that I occasionally glimpsed between my fingers was now flowing on their sharp blades. "What's happening?" I asked, overwhelmed by natural panic.
Keep calm, Cassie. These daggers were meant for you. With their help, you'll be able to control your abilities better when they come to the surface. Now come on, put them in their place, and let's prepare for departure.
I sheathed them, then asked him one last question. "Can you tell me at least where exactly we are?" He looked at the window again, answering me shortly after.
A long way from your home. We are in a hidden plateau in the heart of the Carpathian Mountains.
I took in the information he gave me, trying to remember the exact location of the respective place. After a few seconds, I realized what he had said. "Do you mean we're all the way in Europe? How on earth could you take me overnight across the ocean?" Almost as usual, his answer only made room for more questions.
I'll explain everything someday, but for now, we don't have that much time. We have the best chance to catch those scoundrels now while they're still in the area.
I had no choice. "At least tell me where we're heading," I continued, as we descended the stairs.
We're going to Silverstep, the village where I was born and raised.
He replied, busy arranging the final details before setting out. I had to trust his words and finish off our enemies. Only after that, with the will of the Almighty, could he explain the things I couldn't understand. In this regard, I was happy that I wasn't aging, but I still lived with the hope that it wouldn't be years before he would tell me the truth.